All right, good morning. This is Dr. Tom Knotts, Jr., and today I want to speak to you about the effects of sleep deprivation and some of its many uses, especially in torture, mind control programming, or what we call longevity of enslavement. Um, People don't realize it that are not specifically trained in this field. Even probably 90% of all psychologists, 99% maybe, do not ever get to this level of rationale. There are three stages to the sleep. The first is basically what we call the wishful thinking stage. It's when the mind first begins going into the sleep, and the brain is going over the things that have happened, and it's trying to justify or correct the thoughts that have happened during the day and the actions. Then the next is the cathartic stage. And the cathartic stage, of course, is the longest. It's when you go into complete total delta state. Your REM activity is high during the first stage, and then it begins gradually decreasing. And what happens, it's during that time that the experiential, what we call the empirical knowledge base for decision making, is being built. Everything that has happened during the day is being added to the person's data in the upper 3/8 of the brainstem, called the brain box. It is in there that then all the knowledge of the day is added to it. And the cathartic stage is the last final stage. It's usually only an hour before you sleep, and that's where everything is deleted that is not needed. Okay? Now what happens is during the cathartic stage, at the very beginning, all the stuff is dumped, burned up through neurological process, usually a cortisol influx, which goes in and decreases the potassium and it re-evaluates the calcium, storing what needs to be done, deleting what doesn't need to be saved in the modular systems. Then what happens is the remainder, like the remaining 45 to 50 minutes of the cathartic stage, the brain is making its decisions on how it's going to be that day. All your decisions are pre-planned. You're like a computer that will just simply respond and react. All the reactions are pre-planned. That's why the empirical database collects information from every day, and it modifies the way you will react and behave. Now, here's what happens when you deprive a person of sleep. Sleep deprivation is the most insulting, injurious thing you can do to the brain. It is the most deadly you can do to the brain. It's the worst form of torture, and that's why it's used first and foremost, even in interrogations of police stations. This is why. When you deprive the brain of its ability to do these three stages, all the things that it doesn't want to keep are being kept because it has no ability to dump them. The hard drive, as you will, the brain gets overloaded because every second you're taking in trillions of perceptual points. Everything from temperature to sound to smells to sight, touch, your hair follicles, everything on your body is taking in information. 2 days without sleep and your brain is overloaded. By the third day, the brain is going into a cathartic state. In other words, it's going into a survival mode. Catonesis is a survival instinct that is drawn up. It's called schizophrenia in part because what it does is it's putting incredible fear upon the schizoid, the psychology of the person. By the fourth day, 4 days without sleep, the will is broken. The brain does not know how to make decisions. Whatever a person is then told after the fourth day, and if you want to speed it up, just deprive them of protein for 2 days. Starve them for 2 to 3 days. You'll knock 2 days off this process. And salt. Salt's very important. The brain, after the fourth day of without sleep, becomes hypersuggestive. It will do whatever it takes to get back to a sleep state. By the fifth day, it will not even care whether it's asleep or not. And what's interesting is it's when they put them in those loud sound booths, it's actually not the sound that's keeping them awake. That's just causing terror because it's overloading the senses, so they don't have to keep them in there as long. There's actually a CO2-based gas that's released that makes the body want to fight to survive. And that's why it stays awake. It will not shut down. You want to break somebody's will, destroy their ability to control their own selves, you take away their ability to sleep. This is why in mind control programming, they'll raise a child and they will get that child up at specific hours. They'll put them to bed early and wake them up 2 to 3 hours later, because that causes the mind to split if it's before the 6th year of life. Once you've done that, you create one side to constantly stay awake at night, that's the program side, and one side to sleep during the night, and that's the side that will be out during the day. It's called the night and day. So this is Dr. Knotts. I hope you understand that depriving people of sleep is the worst form of torture, punishment. If you're suffering from sleep deprivation, you need to see a doctor, because it's better to have a medication that puts you to sleep so your brain can shut down than to go without it. All right, Lord bless you in all your endeavors to serve Him. In Christ's name I pray, amen.